Magnetic disturbance might cause it.
No, I just can't account for it.
This is an interview I did with Shepard. He lives on a 106-acre farm using permaculture, doing permaculture experiments. He lives in Wisconsin. This took place on March 2006.
Yeah. So I grew up in an accidental permaculture. Got a nice college education and a nice job as a mechanical engineer, and it's like, this sucks. I'm commuting 45 minutes to work every day through rush hour traffic, living in the city, all kinds of allergies to, crap and pollution. And then I saw an ad for, I saw two ads pretty close to one another, and I kind of did both at the same time to kind of hedge my bets. One was for the last homestead opening in Alaska, and then one was for Unity College in Maine, which at the time was the only exclusively environmental college in the U.S. And so I sent away for both pieces of information, quit my job. With my tax return from that job, I went up to Alaska and claimed a homestead lot way out in the middle of nowhere, 300 miles from town, up in the mountains. You could see the nearest road from where we were at. And simultaneously went back to school for forest ecology. And so between the educational background in ecology, growing up in an accidental permaculture, then trying to live out in the middle of nowhere in a very harsh climate and try to figure out how to feed ourselves without destroying our environment, came up with this really cool, novel approach towards agriculture. And I was giving some talks in Anchorage to some friends at some bioregional meetings, and they said, "Oh, you're talking about permaculture." I'm like, "What? Talking about what?"
Yeah.
And so that's how I ran into the whole permaculture thing. Then I went to the
So you're doing it before you really...
Right.
Yeah.
Before I had a word for it. I had no idea what to call it, And then, went to an official certification course, and then I've taught at many different certification courses. We'll be teaching one this fall.
And Shepard's thoughts on internships and society structure.
Well, we do things differently here. We don't do internships because we're trying to also create some new social structures, some different ways for humans to interact with one another and to interact with the planet. And if I hire you as an employee, I can automatically, we're in a position that I'm the boss, so I know what I'm doing, and you're just a peon, and you're going to do what I say. I'm going to underpay you. I'm going to try to avoid giving you any kind of other benefits that might occur, so the whole relationship just stinks.
Already, yeah.
Well, then if you're an intern, correct me if I'm wrong, but when somebody comes to your place and works and doesn't receive pay for it, isn't that what they call slavery? And the only difference between an intern and a slave is that an intern can legally leave.
Yeah.
I even know some places that the interns have to pay to come work there.
And this is Shepard's approach to agriculture.
If you think about how nature has existed for either 6,000 or hundreds of millions of years, depending on whose book you're reading, it's done it all by itself without our intervention whatsoever. Now, if you ask me, that is the most cost-effective way to produce something. Whether it's food, fiber, or medicine, it does it all by itself. There are certain relationships between plants and animals, certain soil requirements, heat requirements, light, and all that kind of stuff. And nature will sort all that out all by itself. You just plant a whole bunch of things like my dad did in his backyard. You let them sort them out, they'll take care of themselves. Dreamtime is somewhat unplanned that way, and that there's a lot of things that you didn't see there because they died because they were in the wrong place related to something else. There's a whole bunch of stuff that used to be under his walnuts that are dead because you shouldn't plant them under walnuts, and so on. Well, so what we're trying to do is imitate a lot of the different natural processes and principles, and one of which is pretty obvious is called permaculture. It's called stacking one thing on top of another, and depending on whose books you read, there's like between 7 and 14 different layers in a forest. It's really irrelevant on how many layers you have, but you've got like a tall tree. If you have a tall tree in the center, then beneath it on the sunny side, you've got a short sun-loving tree, then you've got a short shade-tolerant tree, then you've got a tall sun-loving shrub, you've got a tall shade tolerant shrub, you've got a short sun loving shrub, you know, shade tolerant shrub, ground cover, you know, sun loving and shade tolerant. Then you've got the vines, and then you have things that show up seasonally. There'll be different plants on the ground in the spring, then in the middle of the summer, then in the fall. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, you had at least 14 right there. That can all coexist together. So all we have to do is select those species ourselves, put them in the right relationships to one another, and it theoretically takes care of itself.
And then he takes the permaculture principle of stacking farther.